Corridors are one of the easiest freshwater fish to breed. Without any extra effort, you'll find that they often lay eggs, those eggs will hatch, and a small amount of those fry will grow up to adulthood in your display tank. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to put in a little bit of extra effort to pull those eggs out and set up a breeding or rearing tank for those fry so that you can increase their survival rate. What up, fish friends? My name is Michael. Hope you're having a terrific day. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be going over breeding corydoras today. So I'm by no means a professional cory breeder, but I have been keeping fish for 30 years and had cories breed in my tanks many times, and finally recently decided that I want to set up a rearing tank to see if I could increase the survival rate. So I'll be going over all the things that work for me and some of the mistakes which led to a lower survival rate. Hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes and improve upon the breeding for yourself. Before you can even hope to breed your cories, the most important thing to do is make sure that they're well fed and healthy. So have a look at this Corridor Care Guide. It'll cover all the things that they need to live a healthy life. And then also consider if you have kind of an oddball species, maybe that falls outside the range of normal cory care, then you might want to do something a bit different to keep them really healthy. After all, there are many species of cories that come from kind of a wide range in the Amazon basin. So it's only natural that some of them might have slightly different needs than others. That being said, most of them do have pretty similar requirements. So what I like to do to trigger my cories is start off with feeding them lots of live foods and bloodworms, like really meaty things. Plump them up, get them healthy. A scrawny fish doesn't have any extra resources to lay eggs, so it's really important that you keep them chubby, well fed. So what I like to do in order to trigger my cories to spawn is I like to simulate a big spring rainfall. So the reason that this works is because in the wild, cories normally will lay eggs in the spring. Springtime is when lots of food is suddenly becoming available. It's a rich and bountiful season. You probably see that where you live. Birds are laying eggs, baby deer, all that stuff. So the way that we simulate spring in our tank is by doing a big old water change, maybe 40 or 50%, adding in slightly cooler water, and then you could even put in a pump or a power head, something like that, to increase the flow in your tank. So think about the rivers and streams in your area in springtime. They usually get some more rainfall or snow melt, whatever causes that water level to rise and cool off a little bit, just because there's more of it flowing faster. So that's exactly what I did in my 75-gallon tank here, and within a few days my cories had laid eggs. I was really lucky that they laid eggs on the outflow of my filter, so all I had to do was pop that lily pipe off and stick it in the rearing tank. Let's say your cories decide to lay eggs on leaves. Leaves are another easy option. Cut them and then toss them in your rearing tank. Sometimes they like to lay eggs on the glass or other surfaces that you can't really pull off of your tank and put in elsewhere. So you can take like a credit card or something of the nature and just kind of like peel them, scoop them off of the glass and stick them into your display tank, or stick them into your rearing tank. In terms of the rearing tank, you don't need anything fancy, but there are a couple big no-nos. You don't want to have like a hang-on back or canister filter. A sponge filter is all you'll want. It's going to create aeration for the fish, a little bit of filtration, preferably a sponge filter that's already seeded with beneficial bacteria. That way your tank's not going to be cycling with sensitive baby fish in there. And then you'll want to throw in a heater, keep it around 80 degrees. Warmer water will help those eggs to hatch quicker It will help them to grow up faster, have faster metabolisms, which will just keep them like healthier overall. But you got to make sure that you're feeding them enough too. At this point, the 5-gallon rearing tank is set up and I got the eggs in there. I have the sponge filter going. Something to note is that at this stage, the most likely problem you'll have is that fungus is fairly common on eggs, especially the ones that die. So you'll want to go through and pull out the ones where you see this little white fuzzy stuff growing on the eggs. And a healthy egg will be kind of orange color. That's because the fish have a yolk sac inside. And yeah, that's where the orange yellow color comes from. Dead ones will look kind of white or gray. So pull those out. So the sponge filter is actually beneficial here. It provides a little bit of flow. Stagnant water is a killer for this fungus. It will not only be more likely to show up, but it will spread a lot faster if you don't have any water movement. After about 2 or 3 days, you should see the eggs hatching. My eggs all hatched within a 12-hour period, but it's always possible for some last minute stragglers to hatch at a later point in time. But at this point, these fry are so tiny, they're not really going to be eating much other than their yolk sac. So the yolk sac will last about a day, maybe 2 days. And once that's gone, you need to have some sort of food in there for your fry. In my opinion, the best food to give them is some sort of live food. So there's a few really small live foods: infusoria, rotifers, and seed shrimp, ostracods. And if you already have a bunch of tanks set up, chances are you do if you're trying to breed your cories. But I would pull some leaves or moss out of an established aquarium and toss that into the rearing tank. So this is an excellent source of food for the first, I don't know, like after the yolk sac is gone. So from day 2 to about day 6 or 7, when it's hard to find something small enough for them to eat, these live foods are just such a terrific source of nutrition. So you can clearly see yolk sacs are gone, they're growing, they're getting a little more mature. Around day 6 or 7 is when you can start introducing bigger foods. This is when I like to start hatching live baby brine shrimp, the ultimate source of food. You can see these guys, their bellies are orange because they've eaten so many baby brine shrimp who also have their yolk sacs. It's important to throw in the baby brine shrimp as quickly as they hatch, because that's when they're going to be packed with nutrition. The longer you let your brine shrimp grow and live out, the less nutrition they're going to have, and the bigger they'll be, so the harder it will be for your Corydoras fry to eat them. Once they're at this stage, there's a lot of different things you can feed them. You can boil egg and then crumble up the yolk, like really crumble it to kind of a powder and release that in there. Hikari makes a nice fry food called First Bites. That's one of the staples that these guys have been eating. And then when you throw in algae wafers or like cory or loach pellets, they can't eat them right away, obviously, but once they start to absorb moisture and get all crumbly, you'll see the cories on there just ripping them apart. So up till this point, I'd been feeding my cories twice a day and doing a water change once a week, and they'd been doing really well. I switched the leaves out a couple times because they started to disintegrate, and did my best to siphon up all the gunk down here, but it's also really hard to siphon with little baby fish everywhere. So naturally this tank does kind of get gross looking, and that's really not a big concern for me, and neither should you be worried about it. A lot of natural systems look kind of dirty in terms of like an aesthetic perspective, but as long as you're keeping the water clear, that's fine. There's actually a lot of good stuff for them to like sift around in the detritus, and that will encourage microscopic fauna to inhabit the tank, which is great for the fish to eat. About this time, 1 month in, I missed a water change 1 week, and I started to see fish dying. And so I immediately got on that water change, and it still triggered something. There were maybe about half of the fry ended up dying in this period. So since then, I've been really adamant about doing a big old water change once a week. And you could probably even be doing them twice a week if you wanted, but once a week worked really well for me. As they continue to grow in size, start feeding them different things. I throw a lot of frozen Daphnia and Cyclops in this tank. They absolutely love it. Tons of pellets, all sorts of stuff, crumbled flakes, anything. The more the better. Keep feeding them twice a day. At about 60 days, they start to look like the adult. And at this point, they can fend for themselves pretty well. They're capable of swimming. They're good at finding their own food. And you're probably about ready to throw them back in with the adults, assuming you don't have other species of fish that are going to chow down on them. So some fun things to think about when you're raising the fry is that there will always be some deaths. It's natural that species with so many offspring, not all of them survive. And looking at the fry that have made it this far, you can see that there's a couple like really beefy, hardy specimens, and then a couple kind of scrawny runts of the litter, I guess you could call them. And I would guess in the wild, these are not the type of fish to survive. They'd most likely get eaten, have a hard time fending for themselves. In a tank, it's a lot easier to survive because I'm providing them with a predator-free environment, clean water, and all the food that they can eat. So it's a good life for them, but I don't know, I don't know how well this scrawny little fish here is gonna do in a bigger tank. We'll see when I add him if he ever like fills out and kind of matures in a good way, or if he's just gonna look kind of scrawny for the rest of his life. When you're throwing the eggs in the rearing tank, it's a good idea to make sure you don't have any snails in there. Snails are opportunistic feeders. They will compete for the small amounts of food that you're putting in the tank. It's really important to not overfeed, because overfeeding them will foul up the water, and then bad water quality is going to kill your fry really quickly. And then the other thing about the snails is that they could actually eat the cory eggs. So good idea to not have snails in there. I had a few snails making it at some point, but the cories were hatched and grown enough to fend for themselves. But I do routinely remove snails from this tank because I don't like them in there competing with the cories for food. There you have it, the quick and dirty rundown of rearing corydoras. It's a pretty easy process. If you're looking to dip your toes into fish breeding, then this is the perfect first fish to start with. Have you ever bred cories yourself? What are some tips and tricks that you use that I haven't included in this video? Well, anyways, thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Appreciate it. Until next time, see ya.